The Eagles were back at it on Monday morning for another day of physical practice, and as anticipation builds and positional battles begin to take shape, here is everything you need to know from another day down at the Novacare complex. But before we get underway, guys, another disclaimer. Just wanted to apologise for my voice in these videos. I know I'm getting a little bit sick and I'm trying to have as many throat lozenges as possible, but for now I've got to sound like I'm just hitting puberty. And of course, guys, if you like this sort of content and you enjoy what we do here at Philly Sports Network, make sure you leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and of course drop all of your opinions on today's stories down below in the comments. We're going to start off with an injury update because there were some notable developments on Monday, starting off with a new name to the list. Linebacker Paul Warrilow was absent from practice today and of course is coming off an ACL tear, and that could be something worth monitoring. This may have been a typical rest day for the veteran, or it may have been something a little more serious considering he's only 1 year removed from the injury. Now, Warrilow was never destined to be a starter in 2019, but he could be a key cog, especially on special teams, so keep an eye on Warrilow's development over the next week or so, and whether or not he returns to action or maybe just needs a little more time. We have to be wary that Peterson is probably going to be extra cautious with his players given just how many injuries the team sustained last year, so don't be surprised to see some more players who are working their way back from injuries just receive an extra rest day here and there. Safety Blake Countess returned to practice today, but the one defensive back everybody wanted to hear about was Captain Cravon. Now, Doug Peterson stated today that LeBlanc's injury is week to week, following on from the report of a foot sprain that sparked the signing of veteran Orlando Scandrick, who reported to the Novacare complex today donning jersey number 45, which isn't great. If we're going to power rank jersey numbers, it's not exactly a god tier one. Bizarrely, Mac Hollins is day to day with a new injury that's apparently unrelated to the one that kept him out of action all last season. Again, details are minimal, but the return of the Mac may be on hold for a little while longer. On to what went down on the practice field. After a slightly rusty weekend practice, Carson Wentz bounced back with what many perceive to be his finest outing this summer. Aside from a stray interception that was picked off by Malcolm Jenkins, the Wentz to Djax connection was piping hot once again, with bombs being thrown across the field all morning long, and the first touchdown between the two all summer. Whether it was corners, posts, or just 40-yard bombs, Carson Wentz and Deshaun Jackson are hitting it off this summer. And hey, do you know what? If we're reporting about this every day, that can only mean positive things for the Eagles offense. NJ.com's Mike K described the relationship as automatic at this point, and if that's not enough to get you excited, the fact that this is just a continuation from what we heard in the spring certainly should. Wentz and Djax look in sync and ready to rip off the tops of defenses in 2019, with the need for speed destined to become a lethal pairing. As for the other quarterbacks, Clayton Thorson didn't have his best day, but that's unfortunately become the norm for the rookie. The Northwestern product has struggled all off-season and doesn't seem to be improving at a rate that was ideally expected, at least as far as the eye test goes, with some reporters saying he was throwing passes wildly out of harm's way. I think there is a growing chance that Thorson is waived or stashed on the practice squad just months after the Eagles selected him in the 5th round, and making matters even more interesting is the fact that Cody Kessler is trending in the opposite direction, having what Ed Cracks called a quietly decent camp. The former 3rd round pick is finding his stride, and that in itself loops us back around to a potential battle that could depend on the QB2 role or Kessler's NFL ceiling. Pre-season is going to be a lot of fun watching Sudfeld and Kessler duke it out, that's for sure. Who's your money on? The odds seem to be favouring Sudfeld right now, but I've said since day one, do not write off Kessler, whose NFL future very much depends on this offseason. After an offseason rollercoaster that saw Timmy Jernigan land back in Philly on a much cheaper deal than the one he signed, before he suffered an injury that caused him to miss nearly all of last season, it was clear that the golden grilled monster will be playing with a chip on his shoulder. He hammered that point home to reporters in May, and he started off the summer in the same way. Jernigan burst into the backfield and brought down Jordan Howard for a tackle for a loss on Monday, taunting the running back just moments after. The presumed DT3 is playing with a point to prove and a bag to earn, and if he continues to explode through camp, the Eagles' defensive tackle depth is going to be extremely nasty heading into the regular season. With Jalen Mills still on the PUP list and Ronald Darby still working his way back, the starting trio of corners remains the same. Rasul Douglas, Avonte Maddox, and it's Sidney Jones in the nickel, and all three are making sure they don't let that opportunity go to waste. Jones has been one of the biggest standouts so far, but today was the turn of the West Virginia Bullhawk. Douglas led the team in picks last year despite the adverse conditions, and he's eyeing a potential starting role, with Mills potentially unable to go in week 1. The young corner is making all the right moves early, intercepting a pass intended for Alshon Jeffrey and turning heads in the process. And while we're talking cornerbacks, it didn't take 32-year-old Orlando Scandrick long to settle into his third NFC East team either. A promising sign for the Eagles, who will be looking for Scandrick to take backup nickel responsibilities, breaking up a pass to Sudfeld that was intended for Greg Ward. The Eagles traded for former Chicago running back Jordan Howard earlier this offseason in a move that became one of the more underrated of the offseason. But the 24-year-old is having no problem reminding the world just how dominant he can be. Elliott Shawpark says he's dominating carries with the first team offense, and there have been noticeable strides in pass protection. It may only be training camp, but if Howard can show value as a pass protector, then not only is he bound to receive the Lions' share of carries as expected, but his role in the offense could be even bigger. It's also worth noting that for the second year in a row, Howard is focused on his ability to catch the ball, something the Eagles are bound to try and lean on if he can become a reliable release valve. And finally, of all the underdogs with high followings, Joe Ostman and Boston Scott may be among two of the most popular. Both players shined on Monday morning, with Ostman recording a would-be sack and Boston Scott becoming a bowling ball who ran over safety Trey Elston. Who'd have thought? It's always nice to see underdogs shining and steal some of the spotlight, and as preseason draws near, the excitement surrounding their progress will only intensify. But what excitement do you guys have? Who are the players you're most looking forward to seeing ball out in preseason? Let me know down in the comments. You can follow me on Twitter, guys, at Liam Jenkins PSN. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video and for putting up with my awful voice right now.